All right, fasten your seatbelts and prepare for a road trip because today I'd like to talk about one of my all-time favorite bands, The Cars. We're going to look at the albums in chronological order and then I'll say which ones are my favorite. Of course, this is the first album, super well known, and the great thing about this first album is pretty much all these songs are hits. So you have Let the Good Times Roll, My Best Friend's Girl, Just What I Needed, In Touch with Your World, Don't You Stop, Side 2, You're All I've Got Tonight, Bye Bye Love, Moving in Stereo, and All Mixed Up. Of course, Moving in Stereo was in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and iconic classic scene. Here's the inner sleeve. Has kind of a sci-fi look to it. So my favorite song off that would definitely be Moving in Stereo. The whole album is phenomenal. On Fast Times at Ridgemont High, of course, that was a classic, iconic scene. And here's the VHS, just for a little sidebar. Great movie. So that debut was in 1978. I remember it well. Roy Thomas Baker Productions. The follow-up, Unbelievably Cool, Candy-O. Classic, iconic album again, Let's Go. Since I Held You, It's All I Can Do, Double Life, Shooby-Doo, and Candy-O. Now that's just side one. That's side one. Night Spots, You Can't Hold On Too Long, Lust for Kicks, Got a Lot on My Head, and Dangerous Type are side two. So when we get back to ranking the albums, I'll definitely be talking about this one. And you can see Rick, and we'll talk about all the band members. Greg here, actually Elliot, donning sunglasses. And so I may have to put some shades on in honor of one of my all-time favorite bands. And as we talk about this band, here's the inner sleeve. What's so great about them? They were phenomenal live. They all brought their own thing to this band. The vocals I can talk about, but what about the Cars? Well, I can tell you this. The Cars are one of the most universally loved bands of all time. I started out a punk rocker, got into new wave, then started liking bands like Rush and Deep Purple, so I got into heavy metal, classic rock. People from all genres, people that don't even like any of those genres, respect and love the Cars. They're on the radio, it always makes my day. Love hearing them, never get sick of them, and they are genius. They're genius. Of course, the guitars, bass, drums, incredible vocals, catchy lyrics, always in a groove, but also the keyboards, the ambiance that are created in the Cars, just second to none. Okay, third album, still Roy Thomas Baker Productions, Panorama. I love the colors, I love the motif, I love racing, I love cars, I love the Cars. And how cool is this? You can just imagine it spinning around. Excellent photography, coolness, good idea, great songs. This album wasn't as received quite as well as the first two, but you know, why make the same album over and over? And they certainly did not do that. I love Panorama. I think it's very, very cool. And again, not making the same album over and over again. I can show the vinyl. They're well protected. And of course, I don't want to touch it, so we'll just keep it like this. So what could they follow that up with? Here's the inner sleeve to it. The unbelievably cool, the unmistakable Shake It Up. I remember it well. I remember buying these at a store called Dayton's in Rochester, Minnesota at the mall. Kind of cool that they showed some of the previous albums. Little promo action there, some 45s. I have these and many more 45s on a video if you're interested. Shake It Up. Now, these songs are probably being played on the radio right now. Since You're Gone. Since You're Gone, one of their all-time coolest songs. Shake It Up. I'm Not the One, Victim of Love, Cruiser, Side 2, A Dream Away, This Could Be Love, Think It Over, and Maybe Baby. Okay, so Side 2 is not chock full of hits. Still Really great album. And again, we're going to get back to these. We're going to get back to these because I will rank my favorites. Okay, how cool is this? Heartbeat City, that was the follow-up. I like the gatefold. I like the Plymouth Duster because that was my first car. Mine was a 318, 3 on the tree, 1970 Plymouth Duster in the same color. Had some cool Mopars, had some cool Camaro Z28s. I could go on and on about cars because I love cars. So for many, this is a favorite because it's chock full of hits also. Heartbeat City. And let's talk about that. Really cool inner sleeve with the sprocket action. And there's also this sprocket action on the inner label. And chock full of hits. Hello again. Magic. Drive. Ben Orr. We love Ben Orr. You Might Think. Heartbeat City. Why Can't I Have You? Of course Rick Ocasek. Greg Hawkes. Elliot Easton. David Robertson. What a just phenomenal, great American treasure. 150 years from now, people will listen to the Cars. They'll never go out of style because they are cool. They were cool. Look up some live stuff on YouTube from the Cars. There's some early live concert footage. They just had the look. They had the groove. They had the originality of combining some different genres. They had cool instruments. They knew how to play them. Then was the greatest hits. When we do our ranking, that will be disqualified because it's a greatest hits album. So for a lot of people, this would be number one. Huge seller, had to have it on CD. Just every song, just what I needed. Since You're Gone, You Might Think. Good Times Roll. Let the Good Times Roll. Is that one of their coolest songs? One of the coolest songs ever from any band? Touch and Go, Drive, Tonight She Comes. My Best Friend's Girl, Let's Go, I'm Not the One, Magic, and of course, Shake It Up. That was followed by Door to Door. Love the artwork on this. Okay, Door to Door. We're going to follow that. We follow up our greatest hits album and Heartbeat City and Shake It Up. These huge, iconic albums. How do they follow that? They do Door to Door. Okay, you're going to get a little more artsy here. A little more artsy. A little less energetic, although Double Trouble. One of their best songs, again, is on this album. So every Cars album is stellar. They're all worth having. They're all iconic. Their worst album is better than so many bands' best albums. So the Cars Door to Door didn't quite sell as well. Wasn't quite as well received. But how do you continue to sell millions and millions of albums? I thought it was a good change for the band. But I will say, other than Double Trouble and some of the stuff on here, it gets a little bit slower. I like the faster stuff. So again, we'll get back to that on the rankings. Here's one I'm pretty proud to have. This one they did without Ben, but they channeled him. They absolutely channeled him. Move Like This. Gatefold. Just a really cool album. They brought more energy on this one. Blue Tip. Too Late, Keep on Knocking, Soon, and Sad Song are side one. Free, Drag On Forever, Take Another Look, It's Only and Hits Me. More energetic on this. Have that Cars classic sound. Here's the vinyl in the protective sleeve. This is getting to be a very hard album to find. And I'm not showing off. I just love the Cars. And it may become easier to find because reprints do happen, reissues. This may be an album that qualifies for that. Okay, now I'm going to rank them pretty soon here. And as I said, you can see the Cars, as you do when driving a car, often you have sunglasses on, so I'm changing up the shades in honor of all members of the Cars. So we're going to rank these albums. They're going to be ranked according to my favorites. I'm not saying the best. I'm saying just my favorites. They're all the best. Stay tuned to the end where there'll be some bonus footage. In 7th place, we have Door to Door. That doesn't mean I dislike this album. This is a great album. I do like it a lot. Something has to come in 7th. 6th place. I hate to put this in 6th because it's just a phenomenal comeback album. They kind of said they would never come back together. They did get back together. It was before it was too late. And they did miss Ben, but they did channel him, as I said before. And it's just a really catchy album. I was listening to it earlier again today. I love it. Love it. Still has that classic sound. It was so many years later. Just so refreshing to see them and hear them again. Okay, next. Panorama. I'd like to have it higher because I love the quirkiness of Panorama. At first, I thought, it's not as good as the rest. It grew on me through the years. Has it held the test of time? All of these have. Big time, big time. Okay, Heartbeat City. A lot of people are going to say, no, that's number 1. I love that. That's what I love about music. I love orange. This person likes purple. I love red. You love blue. What have you. I love all colors, but you get the point. You get the point. Next, Shake It Up. Shake It Up, I remember buying it. I remember like it was yesterday, but it was a long time ago. A lot of people are going to say this should be number 1. Arguably so, but they're all hits. They're all hits, and it's all killer, no filler. If people say this is number 1, I'll say you're a genius. By arguing with myself on it. What do I have at number 1? Candy-O. You know, it's tough. It's tough because, you know, how do you not have Let the Good Times Roll as, Let the Good Times Roll, Moving in Stereo? How do you not have this as number 1? I argued with a guy about this. Why? Because I bought this as a kid. I grew up on it, and I didn't have the other ones yet. And it's just as good. It's a little edgier. So I have it at number 1. I love it. And I love that any of these really can be put at number 1. There's people online that say Door to Door is their best album. And I think it's a stellar album. I think they all are. I guess I've overly stated that point, but why do I? Because the Cars are genius, and they were genius. And they have held the test of time, and they will. So let's show some bonus stuff. Here is a phenomenal CD that Rick produced, and I love every song. And I didn't produce. I would like to have produced this, but Rick did an amazing job with a great band. But for Weezer, I greatly prefer this first album, and I prefer them with Matt Sharp in the band. It's nothing against Scott or any of the other bass players they've had or anything. I just prefer this one, and I think Rick just did such a cool job producing Weezer. He produced so many bands. And speaking of Rick, one more bonus item coming right up. Really enjoyed some of the solo albums. Ben Orr, I'd love to have that solo album of his, and this, I feel, is the best solo album of the bunch. Rick Ocasek. He had 2 solo albums, and I just greatly prefer this one. It, Emotions in Motion, really sounds like a Cars song, as it should. There's the backside of that. Pretty common album. Very enjoyable. Inner sleeve here. This Side of Paradise is the name of it. What's interesting about it is that Steve Stevens of Billy Idol fame, the Billy Idol's lead guitarist and a very particular guitarist indeed, is on that album. The majority of the album, I believe. So you hear it right away. Steve Stevens is a guy like Mark Knopfler. He's a guy that when you hear that guitar tone, you know right away, that's Steve Stevens. He has an alien guitar sound that I love. That reminds me, of course, of Billy Idol right away. And that is just, hey, that's Steve Stevens. Okay, so more sidetrack. I love music. People have mixed feelings about Billy Idol. Huge Billy Idol fan. While we're talking about Steve Stevens, we got to show some Billy Idol. What I like about these, side 1, side 2 on this first album. I love this first album. And there's Steve Stevens. Side 3, side 4 on the Rebel Yell. Okay. Side 5, side 6. There's Steve Stevens again. I'm referring to, he played guitar on This Side of Paradise. Phenomenal guitar he played. So, Whiplash Smut. Love that album. And this one you don't see as much. I almost wish they kind of would have done a side 7, 8. Charmed Life. So yeah, pretty big Billy Idol fan too. Enjoy listening to these. It was back in the days when the Cars were ruling the world along with Billy. And Billy has a lot of people that hate him too, which I could never quite figure out because he's obnoxious maybe or in your face. But he had great videos. He had a cool voice, a deeper voice. He looked up to Elvis. And, you know, I guarantee you he's on probably 3-4 radio stations in Rochester, Minnesota right now as we speak. So somebody loves him. And so that guitar sound, Steve Stevens, is on that album and is a very cool pairing with, at the time, I would have never thought Rick and Steve would make an album together. Thanks for coming along on this musical journey. I'm going to drop you off right at your front door now. We're open 24/7. So, you know, we have some other videos. Check them out. Enjoy if you would. And thanks for this travel. And I hope we didn't put too many miles on, but they were good miles. They were fun miles. And again, one of the most universally loved bands that I can ever think of, the Cars. Great memories, and their music will be played forever.